that.
All right, perfect. So Jenna's on, but I'm going to introduce you a little bit, guys. She is the former global vice president for Whole Foods Market, and she has been leading teams and individuals through change and transformation for over 15 years. She is also an experiencer of supernatural phenomenon, ET contact, and she's developed a passion for helping humans embrace a multidimensional reality without fear. She has also founded Star Family Wisdom. She'll probably tell us all about it, her online educational program. And she is a shamanic initiate, digital courses, and ET contact. So let's just bring you on.
I just want to say, I want to say one thing about Jenna, because she just interviewed me and she is so dedicated to this level of transformation and this starseed knowledge that she's a great ally for all of us to have in this field. So she is dedicated and she's devoted her life to this. So thank you, Jenna, for being with us today.
And I'm going to say something too, Jenna. We'll do a three-way intro. So I just want to also say that Starseed, Star Family Wisdom with Jenna is actually also a sponsor of our Portal to Ascension conference coming up. So this is the first announcement. We have her on the flyers, and we're going to send out an email about it too. But she's actually sponsoring and assisting us in creating more of this magic. So we're creating a network now, starting to work together. So I just want to acknowledge you and honor you for that. Thank you so much, Jenna. It's all yours.
Awesome.
All right, Jenna. We are so excited to have you. I just love your energy. I love that we get to work with you and can't wait to hear your presentation.
Me too. Thanks, y'all. It's so good to be here. And Adam, yes, I was actually feeling a Syrian connection as you were talking about Sirius and as you were showing those images. It connected the dots for me on a memory, a vision that I have had in my meditations. So we'll have to talk about that at some point. I'm going to share my screen and present. Okay, so today we're talking all about the star races, ET tech. You've heard a lot about physics and the geometry of space-time and how we know, what we know about how the universe works. But my talk's going to be centered a little more around who are the star races, specifically the who's who of the galaxy. And, some of this is going to be a little generalized, right? Because we're still learning about all of the details. As Adam said, there's so much vast diversity, right, in our universe and in our local galaxy. And we're now just putting together all of the pieces of the puzzle, and more is coming through for so many people every single day. So our understanding of the star races is evolving really quickly. And I want to share, to begin with, a bit about me and my journey and my star origins. And we'll talk very briefly about where some of the information in this presentation comes from, because it's not all based off of my personal experience. Like Adam, it's connected from a vast number of people and a lot of research that I have done and that has been guided by my star family. And then we'll talk through, some of the individual civilizations and races that we do know about. We'll talk about some of the ancient origins of humanity and recap a little bit of what Dan was talking about. And we'll talk about the benevolent and peaceful races. So to answer, one of the questions that came through, yes, there are so many benevolent, friendly, peaceful races who are assisting humanity at this time. They care about our survival. They know we are in a critical stage. We have reached a threshold where we are ready to remember. We're ready to remember our history. We're ready to remember our connection with these races. We're ready to remember our own personal soul memories. So that's a really beautiful thing. And, we're not going to spend too much time on the bad guys, because we've heard a lot about them, and a lot of our narrative, around ET contact has been centered on, some of those more negative aspects of our reality. So we're going to spend a little more time focusing on balancing that with the light, because that's important. Okay, so as Joan said, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm a former global VP for Whole Foods Market, and at the beginning of last year, I left Whole Foods Market to found Star Family Wisdom, which is now a podcast. So check us out on YouTube. It is also a website and online community where you can access tons of resources and information for your spiritual and cosmic evolution. And it's my understanding through the years of supernatural phenomena and awakening and experiencing ET contact that this is happening for our spiritual evolution because we have a choice as a civilization. We've talked a lot about technology. We've talked a lot about, the kind of transhuman, agenda. And we have a choice as a civilization, as a humanity, as to what path we're going to take and how we take that path. If we take it with a spiritual foundation or if we take that path without a spiritual foundation. So a lot of what I share now is centered around our spiritual evolution. And it's also worth noting that I am a former atheist. So my background, my upbringing was as an atheist, and I was not a spiritual person. I did not believe or know about our history in our galaxy. I did not understand that what we're talking about today is very real. And so it's been through my personal awakening experience that I have accessed more memories. I have come to understand, the nature of our reality. And so I'm not going to talk through all of this, but just to give you an idea of my awakening experience, it only began about 5 years ago. So it's been a very, fast trajectory and progression. I've experienced quantum entanglement with people, lots of telepathic and psychic experiences. I started to, like Adam, have spontaneous past life visions and also future visions. I've had future memory, precognizance, showing up in my life, and then a lot of strange synchronicities, and what ultimately led to ET contact and receiving telepathic messages from my star family that has been unpacked over the years to now, help me understand more about my star origins and where I'm from and what I have to contribute here on Earth. So I have had experiences, past lives in other civilizations, Syrian, Mantis, the Lyran and Arcturian civilizations. I am primarily in contact with the Mantis beings in this life. And my last incarnation, if you want to think of it in a linear way, was with the Mantis beings. It is my understanding that I am returning to that civilization when this incarnation cycle is complete here on Earth. And I have spent the most time in the Orion star system. So we've talked a lot about the Orion connection today and how deep that connection is with Earth. And I'm also incarnating with 2 souls from home. So I have, a soul group that I'm a part of. We all incarnate with our soul groups. And in this incarnation, I happen to be only incarnating with a couple here because the rest are back on the starship. And that's what helped facilitate my connection. And I've also supported the ET positive agendas here on Earth, teaching spiritual law and cosmic sciences. I've had past lives in ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, teaching initiates and leading people through their initiation process, their awakening, helping them access the powers, of the mind and learning how to consciously, control our reality. So I'm kind of just visiting in this incarnation. And I was guided, last year to leave Whole Foods Market, my star family, once I understood that connection with them. And once I felt comfortable with that connection, I allowed them to start guiding me more. And this is the result of that. So we're going to just very briefly talk through the evidence for the existence of star races. I think most people here don't need to hear a ton of evidence to believe at this point. But, I come from an analytical, logical, very science-minded background, and it's important to me that, we also bring in more of the, research and the breadth of information that is out there. And, I want you to understand, where this information information is coming from. So again, it's not just my personal experience, but it's my, research and exploration across, the thousands of ET contact cases like Barbara was talking about, tons of past life regression research where people are accessing these memories. We have more and more disclosure coming from our government officials all of the time. There's tons of clues in our ancient history and mythology, like Adam was pointing to. We have a lot of really credible channeled information these days. I am still highly skeptical of some channeled information, but there is very credible channeled information that we can incorporate into our understanding of these things. And why are the ETs in contact with Earth? Like I said, it's about our spiritual evolution, but there are a lot of different agendas, right? So there are aspects of these contact experiences that are really expanding our consciousness, right? Helping us understand what is possible about consciousness and about the nature of our reality and how our universe works. And in some cases, we're being tested, right? To see if we're ready, to see what the human response is, to see what our psychological response is. And in some cases, we're receiving frequency upgrades. So for us to get to the point where we can even have open contact face to face in the physical with a lot of these beings, we have to raise our vibration to get to a point where we could even handle that, because that's a huge energy for our system to handle. And so a lot of people, are receiving these frequency upgrades through even sightings and that sort of thing. And then like Adam, a lot of humans are having these memories, these soul memories of their star family and who they have been connected with in other lives. And we have so many souls who decided to come to Earth right now to help in this transformation process. That's why you're here. That's why you're part of this today. You are helping in our remembering and our transformation process. And most likely you signed up to come here to be part of that. And again, we've got a lot of, telepathic communication happening because of the situation on Earth, right? We, as a very violent, warring, patriarchal culture, we have not been in a place to receive open contact peacefully. So our first contact is happening differently than other civilizations. And so that's why a lot of the channeling is occurring right now. And that's why I, started to channel with the star races. And then, lastly, there is genetic retrieval and genetic testing going on. Some of that, again, for more self-serving reasons, which has been approved by the powers that be, by the organizational systems that exist in the galaxy. But there's also just testing happening and being done to monitor how we biologically are evolving, because we do have a lot of races out there that kind of oversee the kind of creation and evolutionary process for different planets and different parts of galaxies. And so that's part of what's going on, so if, any of you have had experiences where you feel like you've been abducted or you've had, genetic material taken from you, it's not always a situation where it's a race being self-serving. In some cases, it is for our best interest. And in some cases, humans are being healed in those processes. And so when we zoom out and look at the big picture of everything that's happening and how these, contact cases are occurring, we start to see a different story emerging, a story that's not scary, a story that is about them having our best interest in mind. And then before we get into who they are and a little bit about them, one thing I love to share and one thing I teach about on Star Family Wisdom in our courses are the spiritual teachings and the nature of our reality that can help us evolve into a higher version of human. And the ETs and the star nations absolutely seem to have our best interest in mind, because we gain from all of these different contact cases these very powerful and profound set of teachings that tell us about our interconnectedness, that point us towards planetary stewardship, like Adam was talking about, that talk to us about moral codes and spiritual law and about harmonics, right, in the universe, and about how to create balance and harmony within ourselves and within our civilization. They teach about us, the ascension process and traveling between the dimensions, and about our connection to source, and about our power of manifestation and creation, and that we are part of source and we have that power. And so they are helping us evolve our consciousness in a way that is giving us new tools and helping us also connect the dots across a lot of our religions and our spiritual traditions in a way that reminds us that we are so much more similar, and that all of our spiritual traditions and religions and cultures actually do stem from a common source. And so when I, zoom out and see kind of the breadth of information they are offering to humans, it really is such a beautiful thing to think about how they are from afar assisting us in all these various ways that they can assist us without directly interfering, right? Because there are those rules around non-interference and allowing us to evolve, right? But the more of us that become open to this, and the more of us that accept and want contact, the more we are being given to help us evolve in a really peaceful, positive way. We just have to put this into action now. And that's the hard part, right? So it's all about helping us heal and helping us come back into balance and helping us find our spiritual center. And, I actually had a fairly significant contact experience happen 2 nights ago. And I think maybe it was Adam talking about crop circles. And I was doing a meditation and watching a presentation on crop circles with a couple of friends for about an hour. Nadi Hanna is a teacher at Star Family Wisdom, and we actually are launching sacred geometry courses very soon. And she teaches about crop circles and the connection with sacred geometry and what Adam was talking about. So she was giving us this presentation. And after that, we started having some major channeling and contact that started to occur. And even through the night, there was, presence and contact occurring, and I was receiving these messages. And one of the messages that came through was about us stepping into our spiritual mastery. And I think that was for this group today. And I think it was meant to help us remember that no matter how exciting it is to think about all these different star races and the, modes of travel we might have someday to go visit these planets, and how we all want to make contact and we want disclosure to happen now, there is an aspect of that will only go well if we step into our spiritual mastery. And again, that this foundation of living in a spiritual, harmonious way with ourselves and with each other is really at the core of our experience in this universe. And it's at the core of us being able to become a galactic civilization and an interplanetary civilization. So that was really profound for me personally. And I wanted to share that with you because I think it's an important message for us all right now. Okay, let's get into the races. So you are probably familiar with the Anunnaki. We'll start here. These are some of the gigantic humanoid beings. Oh, thank you. The gigantic humanoid beings that came to Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. We read about them in the ancient Sumerian texts. We hear about them coming from planet Nibiru. And, in ancient times, they settled in Sumeria. And, it's my understanding that they did not create the very first version of humans. We'll talk about that in a minute, but they did infuse their genetic material to create, what is now our more modern Homo sapien. And we have evidence of more large, giant versions of Homo sapiens right here on Earth, all over Earth. There's evidence. We've found giants right in our archaeological sites. Many of our ancient sites are of gigantic proportion, right? Speaking to this, and they lived among humans for a long time, and actually, our Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve story stems from this. And we actually see in, the Sumerian text, Adama is like Adam and was described as the first human created. And then Eva being Eve, the first hybridization upgrade to the human form to create the female version of the Homo sapien. And, Dan was talking a lot about the full story, right? And the full story is wild when you break it down, right? We've got a really wild history here on Earth that has been covered up and misunderstood. But there have been warring kind of factions of ETs in the past. There have been disagreements among ETs in the past as they have interacted with Earth. And this is one example of that, where, we had two brothers of this race kind of set to oversee the human kind of genetic project. And one of those wanted to see the human race wiped out, and one wanted to save the human race, which is how we are here today. So that's, one example, right, of our ancient contact that has just been lost in our memory and then subsequently covered up over time. And then again, the Lyrans or Lyrans, depending on how you want to pronounce that, are closely connected with the Syrians, and they actually help to seed a lot of the races in the galaxy. And our intergalactic and galactic history and our local galaxy is just so intertwined, and it's going to be fascinating one day when we do make open contact and we get to unpack all of this with our galactic brothers and friends. So, I think when we look at all of the information we have, we're getting a good picture, of what happened, but there's going to be so much more detail that we can learn about. And so the humanoid giants are also associated with the Lyran race. And we also have red-headed humanoids from the Lyran star system who have had ancient contact and were partially descended from the giant race. And for the most part, we see a variety of races in any of these star systems, right? So again, it's a generalization to say they're more this than that. We've got more of a connection with, the giants here on Earth, but we also have a segment of Lyrans that are more cat-like humanoid beings. And I've experienced some kind of visions and kind of future or past memory of being in that form. And we also have darker skinned Lyrans who have, influenced, again, the development of our genetics here on Earth. So when you look across our planet, we have so much genetic diversity here on Earth. It's such a beautiful representation of all of the diversity that's out there in our galaxy and in the universe. And again, we know about ancient warring factions. We know about the draconian reptiles and their attempts to take over various worlds. And, again, that kind of battle of dark and light continues to this day. And again, this race is, really now focused more spiritually on helping us heal, while in our ancient past, and there has been some, attempt at suppression of our evolution. But again, we're talking over the course of hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years. So the story evolves wildly during that period of time. And then again, we see in a lot of our mythology, so many stories of interactions with giants. And a lot of that's based off of our actual memory, right? And our stories of gods reflect our ET contact memories. And again, the war of the gods that, we have learned about in some of our mythology is all pointing to our ancient history. And, we see so much evidence of this across the globe. And it's such a cool time to be alive as we are evolving our understanding, and more evidence is coming, to the forefront that's helping us ask harder questions about who we are and where we've come from. And the vegans also helped seed human life on Earth. So, most people are familiar with the Anunnaki story and that seeding or hybridization program that existed. But we had an earlier seeding, of human life on planet Earth. And it's my understanding that the vegans helped with that. They are also from the Lyran constellation, have connection with a lot of those other races we talked about. And in general are a little more similar to some of our Native American or Indian complexions. There are also insectoid and reptilian races there too. So again, there's so much diversity in all of these areas, but these most of the beings in this area of the galaxy are followers of cosmic and spiritual law, and really lean into the divine feminine. And in our ancient past on Earth, our cultures, some of our cultures were more of a matriarchal, divine feminine first culture. And many of the star races kind of follow that and honor the feminine kind of creatrix energy that is that, creation energy in the universe. And the vegans are also participating in the Starseed program. We'll talk a little bit about the Melchizedeks a bit later as well, because that's a big part of the Starseed program that's happening. And Adam did such a beautiful job of talking about the Syrians and their connections with the Elven people, which I don't have in here, but we also know that, Syrians throughout human history have kind of inserted themselves to help with the spiritual evolution. And they're really seen as like spiritual warriors. And, when I think about some of the armor and regalia and weaponry, that different races might be depicted with, that's what I feel. It's like this spiritual warrior energy, right? Where, you can defend if you need to, but you are serving the positive evolution of the universe. And so, I love that the Syrians have been spiritual teachers for humans. And again, we're involved in some of the very, very early, seeding with the Lyrans, back in the day. But, these beings have also been thought to have kind of the elongated heads. And we see that around the world, actually. So we see potentially, some evidence of hybridization in our ancient past in some of these archaeological sites. We also see in some of our ancient Egypt iconography and imagery that, Pharaoh Akhenaten and Nefertiti had elongated heads. And we also know that those leaders at the time were attempting to reestablish a more positive spiritual culture in ancient Egypt as it had been devolving for a while. So that points to some Syrian involvement and influence, again, through the means of reincarnation, maybe soul agreements for hybridization to support, the positive evolution. So we see a lot of examples of that, of, star nations, star beings incarnating as humans throughout human history. And those are a lot of the bodhisattvas, right, that we know of. And a lot of these, kind of ascended master type beings who may have been living in advanced civilizations and chose to come here to support our evolution, help us remember our spiritual nature. And just a quick plug for Kimora Jones. If you don't know her artwork, she does just beautiful, beautiful artwork. And so much of it to me feels very Syrian and Arcturian in what she does. And it's so activating, sacred geometry, like what, you were seeing with Adam's presentation and Dan's is so activating for our consciousness. And it also helps harmonize our energy body and the subtle energies. So even meditating on some of this art can be really powerful and might trigger, some star race memories for you. And, I love just thinking about our history here on Earth and all of the memories, that are kind of coming back to us as we take a step back and look at our history from a different perspective. And it is my belief at this point, based off of my research and my own contact experiences, that the gods and the goddesses of our ancient, history and memory were actually our ET teachers and creators, and in some cases they were fighting over control of the humans and all of that. So humans have been through a lot. Joan was just referencing that like galactic trauma we haven't even been aware of, and the more we are becoming aware of that, the more we realize, yeah, we've really been through some stuff here on Earth, and to have also forgotten and lost that memory is traumatic. And so we have to, be easy on each other and go easy, on our friends and family as we go through this awakening process, because the awakening process that is happening on Earth is one of the more difficult processes a civilization is ever going to go through. And again, we have experienced a much more extreme version of polarization here on Earth, a more extreme version of duality, which has led to the trauma and the violence that, our civilization has experienced. So we are, going through a really big process right now, accessing these memories and connecting the dots on all of this. So we'll switch gears for a moment and talk about the gray races and abductions and hybridization agendas that are going on. And, I'll first say that when I was in my process of learning about all of this and accepting and acknowledging it and accessing, new information and getting it validated by my star family, I had some fear around the abduction scenarios, and I had some fear around the gray races and what they were doing. And I want to make the mantis connection here, because I think it's important to understand that for the most part, these programs are not happening in an unsupervised way. They are not happening in a way that is an affront to our freedom and sovereignty. They are happening for the purpose of continuity of life. And there has been a big misunderstanding about that, because many souls have come into human bodies and had agreements on a soul level with these, other beings that in the particular incarnation they were in, they were going to have this experience and they were going to contribute genetics. So on a soul level, we make contracts and agreements. Those can be changed. If we are having an experience in our, physical life that we don't want, we can actively work to change those. And because of the denial that has happened on the planet, because of the suppression, because of the amount of shadow work we have to do as a civilization, unfortunately, this has played out in a way that was very traumatic for a lot of people. And we now can zoom out and see the bigger picture of why it's happening. And again, that does not change the fact that people have had trauma from these experiences and have had to work through that, and process that. But what is beautiful about these experiences is that no matter how traumatic they have been, for a lot of people, they do eventually give way to more of a spiritual understanding of our reality. And they start to understand that they're contributing to something bigger. And so again, we're, in this process of just understanding this on a deeper level and, accepting it, right, as part of our reality. And so the abduction races who, are known as the Greys, and again, there's a lot of variation within the Grey species, but they generally are from the Zeta Reticuli. constellation and or star system, and their race did not evolve in a positive way. And so, they got to a point where they had pretty much damaged their ecological system. They really overemphasized technology without the spiritual foundation. So this is one reason this is happening for us, is so that we can awaken to the fact that we are at a choice point, right? We don't want to go down the path they went down. We want to go down a different path, a more spiritually evolved path. And so their technological evolution and ecological crisis led to the point where they could no longer reproduce naturally. They had cloned, or they had done so much genetic kind of alteration of their species. They had removed a lot of their emotional faculties. So what makes a human life and experience really beautiful is our ability to feel and intuit and have that sort of experience, with the world around us. And they kind of bred that out of themselves. So they got to this really kind of dark place and ultimately had to turn to cloning to survive. So to prolong their species and to repair the damage that had been done to their species, they essentially asked, we need to go find genetics, right, to repair our species. And they worked with the various, organizations and powers that be to set up the program that's been happening on Earth for the last few centuries. And so they have been utilizing human genetics, which were the closest to their original genetics, to create a hybrid species that will allow them to infuse that emotion, that emotional body back into their being, and ultimately prolong their race. Also, human civilization has been at a critical point, right? We talked earlier, I think Dan mentioned, about nuclear proliferation and how that impacts, the civilizations around us. And we were not, allowed to progress in our nuclear proliferation in a lot of ways because of that. But because we were at a critical point and it wasn't, totally determined, are humans going to get through this transformation and survive, or are they going to go down the path the Greys did? It was kind of allowed, for the Greys to do this work so that there would also be, an additional kind of aspect of continuity of life. And, I believe no matter what happens, on planet Earth, we will always survive. We are survivors, right? That's what we do. We evolve, we transform. We've been through so many eras of human civilization on planet Earth already. So humans will absolutely become a galactic, race one day. We absolutely will continue to evolve, but there have been measures taken to, again, infuse our genetics with other beings so that there is continuity of life for that civilization. And so our genetics also live on, in other ways. And we see this around, the universe and the galaxy, that while natural evolution is absolutely a thing, right? Our science isn't wrong on that, but creation and genetic alteration in an organic, controlled way for the right reasons happens out there. Sometimes it doesn't happen for the right reasons, but for the most part, it happens for the right reasons. And it is, overseen by other beings. And my understanding is that the mantis beings, have been overseeing this program. The mantis beings, we'll talk about them later, are a more kind of spiritually and technologically advanced race. And so they could, guide the Greys in a way that resulted in the right outcome. So we'll talk a little bit about the outcome of that hybridization program. And again, there's a lot of hybridization programs happening. So again, it's not just the Grey races that have been involved in this, but this is what is most kind of prominent in our consciousness here on planet Earth, because so many humans have been a part of this one and have had the traumatic experiences that they've had. So we see the tall Greys in a lot of abduction and regression cases. They are also a hybrid, ET kind of humanoid race. And then many of you are probably familiar with Bashar, the being that Daryl Anka channels, and Lisa Royal Holt channels. And Bashar is from the Essassani race and is of the third kind of generation of hybrids. And they have been assigned to make first contact with humans, and they are helping us understand the hybridization program on the whole, and they're helping us understand the intended evolution of that program. Again, evolution and how we progress can go a number of different ways. So this is not to say this is exactly how things are going to go, but based on our current timelines and our current trajectory as a civilization, it appears as though this is the direction we'll be headed. And so the third hybrid race really represents a half and half kind of split between human and ET genetics. And one thing I love about Bashar and the Essassani race is how they really view humans as their ancestors, and they want to help us. Like, they see that we have offered, this gift to their race, to their civilization. Like, they exist because of us, and they honor that and respect that and have gratitude for that. And so that's why they are in contact with humans on the level that they're in contact with us, so that they can offer their gifts and be of service to our evolution. And that's a really cool reciprocal exchange that's happening there. Again, when you understand kind of the bigger picture of, why it's happening and what the result is. And then, Bashar talks about the Shah-Yael being the fourth hybrid race, and that those beings are looking a little more human, but still look somewhat gray. So there's been kind of an attempt to move the hybrids towards a more human looking format. And the fourth hybrid race is acting as a guide for the fifth hybrid race, which is intended to start interacting with us when open contact occurs. And Bashar talks about how the window for open contact starts next year. So it doesn't necessarily mean ships are going to, show up in our sky and land on the ground next year, but it does mean we're entering into this window where that sort of thing is becoming more of a possibility for us. And then Bashar talks about the Shalanaya as being the hybrid children who are living on the ships. And the hybrid children ultimately are intended to come live with us at some point down the road. And again, this could be, 150 years in the future. Who knows? It may not be in our lifetime, but it is intended that after open contact occurs, that we start welcoming some of these other beings into our world, and that we start to, kind of recreate our civilization in a more positive way, and allow them to integrate in a way that helps us become more of a galactic civilization. And that will be a way in which humans can harmonize with the galactic civilizations and can kind of ease into the process of this very different future that we are on the verge of, right? So what we experience today as our daily lives and our, way of living is going to be completely different when that day comes. And so there will need to be a period of integration and working to kind of, again, unlearn and relearn a lot of our human history, a lot of our galactic origins, and getting ready to go out there. And ultimately, the process of those hybrids, coming to be with us on planet Earth will move us into being more of a true hybrid species. So again, we already kind of are a hybrid species. When you take a step back and just look at the history, we are so much more than just human as we have thought we were. But this scenario will potentially move us into, again, a different version of humanity. But we always have choices in this. Again, there are, with every choice, new timelines that are created and new probabilities that get created that result in different futures. And so it's all dependent on the choices we make, how we engage with ETs and the way we are today, that will move us into one of these potential futures. And like Barbara was talking about, we have so many beautiful examples of, contactees remembering images and remembering the, visualizations of their children that they have interacted with on ships. And so we have so much more imagery now coming through that is giving us a better idea of what some of these beings look like. And, again, as Adam said, outside of the hybridization program with the Greys, so many of the beings really do appear humanoid in our visions and in our understanding of them, because it does appear the majority of, at least our local galaxy is humanoid. But we have, some versions of beings that are going to be very different looking than us. Okay, so I'll talk for a moment about, again, some of the helper and teacher races that have been among us and that are in contact with Earth today. And again, the Arcturians are one of those races. They are really, master healers in a lot of ways. And for a lot of humans who have interacted with them, they appear much larger than the average human. A lot of these races do, actually. And they have more of an almond kind of shaped head and cranium. And the Arcturians really are a very kind of elegant and spiritually advanced race, and they operate in various dimensions or densities. And, they have absolutely been willing to support Earth through the Starseed program. We have so many souls here who, have the Arcturian connection, but they also are interacting on, an energetic, but also kind of physical level with us at times. There are many healers on planet Earth who are working with the Arcturians. There are many beings or humans here on Earth who have visited their healing chambers and have seen their technology. So the Arcturians really provide kind of a better understanding for us about the advanced healing technologies that may exist. And they show up in a lot of healing sessions. And a lot of people just don't even know that these beings are with us. So, when even when I do shamanic work and shamanic energy medicine, the star nations, are supporting that process sometimes as well. So, we have a lot of connections in that way that are forming with the ETs. So as we say yes, as we say we want connection, we want help, we want your support, we want you to, be with us on this journey, they will show up more and more and more in those capacities, which is really beautiful, right? Because that bypasses the non-interference policy, right? If we ask, if we're open, if we want to bring them into our reality, that, quickens the connection and the contact. And then, Adam did such a beautiful job talking about the Pleiadians and, their connection with water. And we know now that, the Pleiadians have a long history of contact with Earth. And there's actually been some accidental interbreeding when some of their ships landed here eons ago. So that's happened too in our distant past. So we've got a lot of this sort of interbreeding that's just been forgotten about. And, a lot of our Native American origin stories point to the Pleiades as well. And they really feel this deep emotional and spiritual connection with humans. And so they have, at this point in time, really come back to support our evolution. Because we, have so many souls here from the Pleiades right now. And it's kind of like a big galactic family reunion on Earth right now. Whether you remember your soul connections or not, that's really what's happening. It's kind of a big galactic party on Earth to help Earth, move into this next stage of its evolution. And, we hear about the Seven Sisters constellation through, so much of our mythology. The number 7 shows up, throughout so much of our ancient texts, like in the Bible, in really significant ways. The number 7 is also significant in other ways, but, we also have kind of a bird and like wing connection with the Pleiades that shows up in a lot of our mythology. The Cherokee tribe, which I'm a part of, absolutely believes that their origin is in the Pleiades. And you can see the 7 stars depicted on teepees. And, in South America, even some indigenous tribes use the same word for year as they do Pleiades. And so we've so many connections that we are uncovering, which is so fun. And then we have a couple of other races. This one, the Aryan race, I'm somewhat kind of connected to because of my time in the Aldebaran star system. So the majority of my connections with star nations have been in those 2 star systems, or the Aldebaran star system and the Rigel star system, which are located in the Orion constellation. This race physically looks more like our Asian races here on Earth, and they have very advanced telepathic abilities as well. So, we've got a lot of humans advancing their telepathy, and they are working with humans. They are part of the Starseed program and followers of cosmic law. And then the Nordic looking beings that people have seen and interacted with for the most part are the Eridanians, and are about average in human height. Again, followers of cosmic law, spiritual law, and really work on kind of energy timeline manipulation. And again, we're not going to get into all the details on how timelines work today, but, suffice to say, we can go back and heal the past. When something tragic, or traumatic has happened, even as an individual, we can go back and heal that in our timeline to affect how the future plays out. So there are some very advanced races who are doing that sort of work, but you're kind of only allowed to do that as you get to a certain level, because there is an organizational system that's in place for our local galaxy, all the galaxies, that creates order, right? That prevents, more negative outcomes from happening as much as possible. And then the Melchizedeks you might be familiar with, because there are a lot of spiritual teachers here on Earth who use that name, who have taken that name. And this is not so much a race as it is kind of a conglomeration of civilizations, beings. It's more like a kind of learning center, an organization in our universe that souls will pass through to advance their spiritual knowledge. And then the souls who have spent time in the Melchizedek kind of organization then go out and teach in the universe and bring that to, civilizations that are awakening like ours, or go seed that information, as civilizations are starting. And so, in a lot of ways, what's happening on Earth right now is partially facilitated by this organization, and many Starseeds, ambassadors, teachers are either, currently working with them or have passed through there in the past. So again, we have a much more broad set of civilizations, souls, beings, working with Earth right now for this evolution. But the Melchizedek kind of organization is well known out there as being very focused on positive spiritual advancement and evolution in the universe. Okay, we're going to wrap it up with the insect and reptilian races. So, we heard, from Dan a bit about, the history and some of the, the darker history that has happened in our galaxy and how Earth, has been dragged into that. But it's important to remember that with any race, right, there's good and bad. And while, we have a narrative that has formed on Earth around the reptilians and, their influence here, we will feed what we focus on. So that's why, I focused so much on the other races today, because I think, we're at a point where we're starting to transcend that draconian past, and we need to focus on that less. We need to focus more on the positive aspects of our evolution, and then how that will shift and change all of the systems here on Earth that might have been set up by them. So We'll first talk about the insect or mantis beings. I was shocked to find out that I was from the mantis civilization. It's so funny how, as humans, as we're growing up here on Earth, we form these biases, right? And we associate with people who look more like us. That is part of our natural human experience. And so most of us would not assume or think we would, be connected with a race that looked so different from us. But this is, again, helping us, understand just the vast diversity that exists out there. And so the praying mantis beings, are occupying some of the higher dimensions and largely exist in the Andromeda galaxy, but also in our Orion constellation here in our local galaxy. They look very similar to the praying mantis here on Earth. And, they're very serious in a lot of ways and reserved beings. And, a lot of my personality actually and my human experience in this life is very much like mantis. I can be fun and playful, but I'm very serious, very focused on, the mission at hand, very much, in that kind of leader mindset. And they're very much about supporting the positive evolution and helping civilizations transcend duality, because they have gotten to a point where they are doing that. And so again, they're overseeing the gray races. They are kind of hired in a way at times to work with different races because of how scientifically and spiritually and technologically advanced they are. Again, it's so important that we evolve hand in hand spiritually and technologically so that we are, making the right choices that support our evolution. And again, they're part of the Melchizedek Starseed program. And, I think one of the other speakers talked about how, some of the ET tech is so sophisticated that it's almost as though it's just consciousness, right? And so the mantis, have gotten to that point where a lot of their tech is very biological in nature. It's almost as though it's its own living being. And they're one of the races that uses consciousness to operate, their technology, and they're very telepathically advanced, obviously being, one of the more advanced civilizations. And so they have helped me, kind of activate and increase my telepathic abilities, which I knew nothing about years ago. And so, it's through these sorts of experiences that we can really start to accept each other as humans more, right? Because, when you start to realize you have connections with all of these, other races and how different they are from us and how we might be interacting with such different beings someday, it really helps us, kind of ground in the fact that, well, we really have some work to do here to accept each other before we can even, accept some of these other beings. And I'm still working on my conscious recall of some of my experiences with them. I have accessed memories. I have seen them a little bit, in some of the contact experiences, but my subconscious has not let me have full conscious experiences yet, or extended ones. So I'm working on that. But suffice to say that, it was pretty shocking to find out that I was with the mantis. And I was sharing in another talk this morning that I actually had what I think is a future memory experience of embodying, being in a mantis body and reuniting with the beings on the ship and having this very odd experience of how my body was moving as a mantis, like just totally different from a human body. And to all of a sudden be in that body and experiencing it is so wild. And then I think, it's so fun for so many humans who are starting to open up those channels and starting to access those memories that, it gives us this opportunity to experience so much more of ourselves, right? That, we really are these just infinite beings with so many experiences happening out there that we have experienced, that we are experiencing simultaneously. And the more open we get, the more we're going to have access to that, which is really cool. So again, we're not going to spend too much time here, but the reptilians, have been a negative influence, the draconians specifically, and they're pretty unemotional, right? They are pretty much service to self. A lot of the corporate structure that has been put in place here on Earth, kind of our hierarchical structures, our corporations centered around profit and money, really were influenced by this race of beings. And so, they have sought to influence, our societal norms in a way that is more destructive and more centered on those things than positive patterns. But again, we are in a process of evolving past their influence, right? We're at that threshold where the choices we make from this point forward move us beyond their influence, and everything we have gathered at this point about their influence tells us that all of the positive races and the Federation that has been working to support the evolution of Earth is moving us beyond that, right? So we have help, we have support. That support has been in place. We have an opportunity to move beyond this now. So I'll leave it there. But I think, it's important that we don't hold on to a victim mentality, right? I talked a bit about how, humans have been through a lot. Like humans have, had a rough history, and we've had some ET contact that was not so pleasant. We have also had a lot of ET contact that was very helpful and supportive. We have also created a lot of our own trauma. So we often find ourselves operating in a victim mentality, and a lot of the reptilian narrative has been centered around that, right? This victim mentality, rather than us taking control as a people, right, to influence the changes and kick the leaders out, right, to create new systems. And so we do have that ability as a human race, and I think it's important that we just start to make that shift now that we do have all this support around us. We have so much advancement in technology and physics that is helping us move beyond where we have been. And, we've been largely in a fear state as a civilization. And a lot of that, again, is influenced, by, what has been put in place, some of the structures that have been put in place on Earth. And we can heal from that. And it's so important that we're all doing our own healing work around that and getting ourselves out of a place of fear and working to support, whatever piece of the puzzle is our piece of the puzzle, supporting that positive evolution here on Earth, right? Because the more of us that are focused on ways we can contribute to better, more productive, more healthy systems, the more of us that are awakening and accessing these expanded states of consciousness, the more we are going to shift the collective consciousness in a way where this will not be our reality anymore. And it won't be a place we have to stay in. And then again, we've got positive reptilians as well, right? So they're not all service to self. They're not all bad. And so again, it's kind of a generalization or racist of us to say that, all reptilians are bad, because they're not. So again, I think we have to zoom out, to really remember the diversity that exists, because we do have reptilian races who want to follow cosmic law, who have worked to separate, from the more negative factions of reptilians. And so, again, we tend to focus on the more negative, right? We tend to get worked up by that and lose sight of the positive. And so it's just so important we shift ourselves back to how can we harness all of the positive support that we have to move this civilization forward. And with that, I'm going to start to wrap up so that we can maybe get back on time a little. The Meet the Star Races course just launched on Star Family Wisdom. So check that out if you want to go deeper, if you want to make contact yourself and learn about that, if you want to learn more about my personal contact experiences and how that is contributing, to the work we're doing at Star Family Wisdom. Check that out. We have early bird pricing through tomorrow. And we also offer so many teachings on spiritual law, cosmic law, manifesting your reality, becoming a creator of your experience, of your life experience, and how to create the shifts in your energy field that will allow you to experience a more positive, vibrant reality. And I know we all want that, right? Like we all just want this planet to thrive and flourish. We want to heal the earth. We want to heal with each other. And that's why we came here. That's why we're here to do this work together and to get ready, right? To help our civilization, help our friends and family get ready for what's coming. So we may have a few minutes for questions. But before we do that, do check out the Star Family Wisdom podcast. We just launched a few weeks ago. We're getting great guests. Alan was on recently. Alan's interview is airing next week, so check it out. And then, like I said, we have sacred geometry courses launching next month. So if some of the, physics that Dan and Adam were talking about were a little over your head, that can get a little mind-boggling at times. Naughty does a really great job of breaking down how the sacred geometry explains our spiritual reality and explains our consciousness. So check that out, Alan.
Yes. What were you saying? Wait,
Jenna, what a great job you did. And everyone is really excited, and you actually managed to wrap up exactly. Well, you have 30 seconds.
Check out the sacred geometry courses next month. I think we're launching on the 12th. We'll have geometry courses.
And Jenna, just tell them about your organization again that you're producing.
Yeah, so Star Family Wisdom really is about supporting our spiritual and cosmic evolution. So the podcast is going to feature so many amazing conversations. We'll have so many guests. Unmute yourself. There we go. So we'll have so many great conversations about these topics, and we're going to be going deep on our personal experiences as they're happening. We're going to share them with you. Like I said, Alan was a guest recently. His interview is airing next week, and our passion is supporting our positive evolution. And there's so much we can do individually, internally to support that. And so we just want to be a support system for you on your journey. And I'm just so thrilled, Neil, that we're partnering and so excited to be here. And I know this was kind of a high level overview, but again, there's just so many aspects of what we can cover with this work. And I'm excited to go deeper in the future.
Thank you so much, Jenna. And I just wanted to say, I love the whole presentation, but especially how you ended it in regards to the polarity, the different races, the reptilians, because that's kind of was the intention for this event, was really to just get beyond just generalizations. And linguistics and why we call things certain things, and believing in everything as either good or one race is bad. So I just want to appreciate and acknowledge it and just drill that message one more time again as we close out with your presentation. So thank you.
Amazing. I love that you actually said that the reptilian agendas, we're learning to kind of navigate them and overcome them. But a fantastic presentation. It was very soothing to my soul, and it was a good mind chill.
Good.
One thing so much, Jenna.
Yeah, one thing I just want to reflect on briefly too is how through all of these conferences, the information that's coming from each speaker is like putting together pieces of the puzzle. And it feels very guided to me. It feels like we've all been given these pieces of the puzzle to help present, that then just, kind of layer on, piece after piece that paint the full picture. And I think that's just so cool to see that, like how that is happening in these 100%. Conferences.
Yeah, when I'm on these events, these conferences, and how everybody builds on each other and it's all different aspects, I kind of envision that in my mind, like it's one big jigsaw puzzle, and we're just putting the pieces together.
Yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Thank you so much, Jenna.
Exciting. Thanks, Jenna. We will see you next time.
It was so good to be here.
So do we have